Hello Nitro fans, Racing 393. This is part 3 of my Kyosho Nitro Burns 4x4, which I think this was the MP1, I believe, from my understanding. Like I've said, I've got an MP5 which I restored to the best that I could. This is the very first iteration, so about 1987 this came out. It's about 1989-ish, something like that, I don't know. So 3 years. They are about, but it's super difficult to get bits. So my first process was, my last video, to go over the shock absorber. I took it off, cleaned it, put it all back together. It's fine. So I'm going to do the other 3, but I'm not going to bore you filming these because it's not much to view. Unless I find something a bit different, I'll just come back. I might show you the before and after, sort of, at least it's got some content and say, well, that's it now, and then here it is now, I've done it. So you're going to bear with me while I work through the shocks. It's not the most, for viewing, the most interesting thing, but I for some reason, I quite enjoy building shock absorbers on radio controlled cars. I don't know what it is about it. It's just everything, for me at least, it seems to tick all the boxes in my brain. Anyway, I'm going to work through this one first. I'll take it off, show you. And it'll be the similar on all of them, but you won't, it's not. I'm not going to be here stripping them down in front of the camera. So let me just get on with that. So there's a shock off. It was quite easy. There's the pin, the bottom pin. I normally clean those up so that it goes back in and it's not, there's no grime or any rust on that part. Shock looks in reasonably good condition. Doesn't look like it's leaking. There's a bit of score mark there on the top, but that doesn't matter. It feels alright. I don't think it feels as good as once you've rebuilt it. I think it feels a lot more shock absorbery, if that's the thing. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm going to strip it down and I'll show you that once I've rebuilt it back up again. It is a little bit grubby, so we'll give it a good clean. So there's the shock absorber done. Bit cleaner. Looks alright, nothing broken. Feels a lot better now. Did have oil in it. I'll show the oil later on. Clean the spindle up as well. So yeah, that'll go back in nicely. So we'll stick it back on the car, and then we'll do the same with the back. So that's one of the rear shocks off. It's it's alright, a bit grubby. So we're going to give that a strip down and a clean. You can see there it's got a little Nitro on it. It's got a much longer shaft on the front, obviously, but not very thick either. Not really a particularly thick shaft. Pretty sure these shock absorbers are on like the Kyosho Legendary. What was that? The Optima. But there's one with some gold shocks on, and they look pretty similar. Maybe they are them shocks. These ain't the original Kyosho Burns, although from what I've seen on pictures, they look the same. So maybe they are the same. And then you can see the pin there. We'll give that a good clean. So yeah, let me crack on with that. Bit messy, but we're getting there. That's one of the rear shocks done. Pins all clean. It was a bit grubbier, that one, but it's all done. New fresh oil in it. The anodizing's come away from the body a little bit there. There's not a lot I can do about that, but yeah, it all feels good. Much better than it did. I'll show the oil that came out of that one. Actually, I'll show you the sort of the contamination of the oil that was in it. This is just fresh oil. I mean, it is Tamiya oil, shock horror, but still good. All works. Okay, so we'll get that back on the car and we'll get the other one off. It's always good when you've done something you actually notice the difference. It feels a lot smoother. That's the one I haven't done yet. That's still on the rear, and that's the one I have done. So you can see, even from that perspective, that they do look, I mean, they're clean, aren't they? And that feels a lot smoother now. That one does feel a bit empty. Although there is oil in it. I'll show you the oil in a minute, like I said. But anyway, I'm going to take that one off. and then I'll show you when I put it back on. So the 4 shocks are done. So front, they're quite good condition. Back, they're not as in good condition, they're more worn. The anodizing's worn off, but they work beautifully. So they're not worn inside, nothing's perished even. All good. So they're only put back on for now. I've got a lot of hardware coming, some stainless steel hardware. Hopefully we'll get most of these nuts and bolts and screws and things, washers changed. But that's the oil that came out. So you can probably see the bit of the front, the sort of the edge on the left there is cleaner oil. And that was in the front shock. The other shock was very similar. I felt they were quite a clean oil when I took the other one out in my previous video. And the dirty bit is the rear oil. So, well, either the obvious is that the fronts have been changed and the backs hasn't. You know, these are slightly better conditioned shock absorbers, or the fact that because at the back it's getting a lot more grime and stuff from the engine, isn't it, and oil and bits and pieces, nitro and that. So maybe that's possibly why. But anyway, that's that done. The next thing really in this video is to take that off. There's a problem with that. That outlet there is loose, so I don't quite know what I need to do with that. Again, I won't know until I take it off. I don't know. I mean, what I'm kind of hoping is that I could screw it on from the inside if I can get something in there, a bolt or something. I don't know, or another outlet. I'll have to find out what that is. But we're going to remove the fuel tank and we'll give it a clean. I'm not sure how far I'll go in this video. I'll go as far as I can regarding stripping it down and cleaning it. I'm still waiting for a number of bits for it now, but anyway, let me grab that and take it out. So that's the fuel tank's out. I think I might have found my first issue. The tank's in good condition actually. It's not broken or cracked, which is good. A tank, and it is the original tank, which is awesome. Now there's this breather here. Well, that goes to the exhaust. That one goes to the carb. And in there we've got, this will need cleaning, but that's the I think it's original. This is the pickup. There's no fuel filter on it, but we could easily put one in the fuel line anyway. It's not a problem. And that in effect goes into there, and it's it's not snug, but it is that diameter. So that goes onto there. Now clearly there must be something which goes on there. What was on there was another bit of hose. I don't know whether was correct or it's just a makeshift. But whatever it is, it has to be airtight. So there might be a union or like a nipple or something which goes on there, of which it sort of must sandwich it. It can't just be pushed into plastic. So we'll need to investigate about that. Whoever had this before has tried to fix whatever it is, and they've put sealer around here which is falling inside. I can still see it. I need to try and get that out because it will clog the engine, which is a bit if we ever get that far. The lid, it's all original. It's got the rubber seal in there. It's not damaged at all, so that's all good. I think it just needs a little bit of a clean, but I think at the moment that's not too bad. I will need to sort of find out what I need to do about this bit. It can't be too difficult, and another fuel tank would fit, but I'll try, as this is the original there, I will try and use this one. But that's my next task, to find out what I need for that. So upon investigation, we got this off and we cleaned it, and it's all good condition. It's got some residue in there which I need to try and remove. But in there should be a rubber grommet. I don't suppose that'd be too difficult to do, or you can have like a double sort of nipple on there, or one that can screw in. You can put a bit of pipe on the other end. That's what I'll probably end up doing. I found my first other issue. This was the fuel pickup. It's actually snapped. I mean, it's still usable. That would still, if you had that on the other side and fixed, you'd have to put a slight bend in it somehow. that kinking. It's not very big, but the wall thickness is quite thin. So as soon as you bend it, it kinks. I guess that's what's happened. So I was looking at it and I thought there's a bit of sealer on there. So I was sort of scraping the sealer off, and I could see that there's, that was joined together, but it snapped. So that's maybe not any good anymore, and it was sort of held a bit of sealer in here as well, which is a bit of a mishmash. So that's the first issue that I found. But yeah, I'm sourcing. I don't suppose this will be. Hopefully, it won't be too difficult to get something sorted for that. So what's next? So at the car, the rear sort of suspension and gearbox assembly, diff. I think what I might do is I'm just going to remove these plastic mounts. So we've got there, which are the fuel mounts brackets. So you've got one there and one there. So we can take those off. And I think I'll remove that centre brace because it's actually something, it's either snapped, which I think it might have done. No, it hasn't snapped, so there's nothing in there. I just think the screw's missing. That's fine, but we can just take that off anyway because it's not needed at the moment. It looks like the rear sub-assembly is just screwed together. Yeah, so let me just take a few bits off. I'll clean them. That's the whole purpose. We're basically finding issues before we start putting more money into it to restore what I can. Yeah. Anyway, let me take a few more bits off. Got these all off and cleaned them. I'm going to keep the hardware with the bits at the moment until I get my stainless steel set, just so I know where things have come from and what type of hardware was used. But plastic's all clean. It's it's quite old, as you know, 87, so it's old plastic, but it feels okay. It's got fairly good quality, nothing broken or stripped, so that's all good. So we'll put those small parts there into the bag, and then we're going to start to remove the rear suspension as a complete unit. I think it's just a case of these 4 bolts there anyway, so we can undo them, take the centre shaft out, and then we can get the whole unit off. It's gonna be a bit messy because it has never been cleaned, and then we'll start the process of stripping it down piece by piece. This could be stripped down and rebuilt. I'll probably strip it down in segments because I've still got the stainless steel screws and hardware to come, and I can replace what's on there with some better quality equipment. But anyway, we can get as far as stripping the back off and take the wheels off, for example. These are quite hard, worn rubber, but maybe with some, there's no foams in there. Aussie foams, I don't know if it was a thing back then, but maybe we could rejuvenate these, just a bit of, I don't know, a bit of warm water and some WD-40 on them, I don't know. I mean, these aren't ideal, but at the end of the day, if I was going to run it, if we get to that point, to be honest with you, I think they'll be fine, because I don't look like they're perished. There's no splitting of the tyre anywhere. I can't see no unnecessarily deterioration with it when it goes onto the rim. So it feels fairly solid. So it's not something I mean, it does come off. That tyre there will come off, but these ones I don't know. Maybe they will. Yeah, they probably would come off. Got to put a bit more effort into it. Okay, right, let's just go a little bit further. It's always good when the things you undo and not strip. I mean, it is only screwed into plastic, but screws that are underneath a chassis on any rally control car do get a bit of a hammering. That screw there is a little bit tight, but you can see it coming away from the chassis. Oh, there's not more than one, is there? The chassis. You never quite know what to expect when you get this off, because I don't know how long it's been before things like this have been taken off, and that one there is a bit tight, and it's bent as well. Look, you can see that screw is bent. Now hopefully that just means not what it's going into is damaged. So we're taking these off. Hopefully you can see them. I'm trying to sort of film it so you can get a bit of insight to what I'm doing. And that one is still a little bit tight. So it's actually been bent. That's it, that's the chassis away. So I'm going to move that away now. And that, if I can move the chassis a little bit more there. This is crap everywhere, but that's the rear assembly, the rear gearbox and diff housing. So I'm just looking at the teeth. It looks in reasonably good condition. It is super smooth. I've got to say, I will take that apart. It does need a clean. So there's not a lot of room here where I'm doing this, but yeah, there's like crap everywhere. You can see it just falling off. So I need to clear some of this with just some water for now. I mean, there's still grease in there, as you can see. So it's probably the original grease at that. So I'm going to tidy this bit up. So I've got the shaft up, the drive shaft out, and there's the back of the chassis. I think I'll clean that first actually, because it's that grease on there is horrendous. That's probably the original grease as well. You know, look at that. There's a big lump of whatever. Well, grease, isn't it? Okay, let me I'm covered in it now. Let me just get myself sorted. I've got to get the grease off me somehow. Just bear with me a second. What would you call that? Transaxle? I'm trying to make these words up. It's just the rear gearbox of diff. It hasn't really got a gearbox. It's a differential. So we got that off. I've given it a bit of a clean down for now, so it's workable. It is that screw there that's actually bent. So that's what it is, isn't it? So got the drive shaft there from the rear gearbox to the centre diff. I keep saying gearbox. You've got the centre diff, which is underneath there, the centre diff, and a geared diff, isn't it? I mean, I can't think of a name for it now, but anyway, that joins them together. So far, I haven't found anything else wrong, which is good. I think what I might do is remove the wheels and tyres. Wheels are in pretty good condition, so we give them a wipe down and see the hubs. And then we'll clean that up. And then it'll be a case of then, what I want to do then is I want to wait until I get the hardware. So once I've got the hardware here, which I think should be here soon, we can strip this down and replace everything on here with the new hardware. And then it's ready to be back on the chassis. I'll then do the front end exactly the same and put that back on, and it should come back as a rolling chassis but clean, and then it'll be a case of getting an engine and putting it in, finding engine mounts. I mean, this chassis has been a little bit butchered. It's had various different mounts on it. I've got engine mounts which someone's made. It's like anything, you'll find anything that's collectible, you just can't get hold of any gear. So yeah, anyway, I've done enough for the time being. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove the wheels and tyres, and then we'll have a look at the hubs. So I found my second issue. It's nothing major because it was expected. Took the wheel off, and I noticed that there's a split in the tyre, which is, you know, is expected, isn't it? I mean, they're old. They are old at the end of the day. So there's there. So it has perished. It's not the end of the world, because I do believe you can still buy these or any. The problem is, it's what the tyres will fit these rims, because on my MP5, MP5, when I restored it, I put different hub extensions on. Those are the original, like I say, these are the original hexes. On modern 1/8 buggies, I believe they are 17mm hubs or hexes. And these, I've just measured this one in the old school. Might as well use an old school. You can see there. Let me just move. It's difficult holding the camera and trying to film and measure. So that reads, I don't know if you can see it, I can't because of my bloody eyes, 19. Yeah, so they're 19mm hexes, which I think is how they used to be, and it's the 17 that they use now. If I wanted to change the wheels and tyres, I'm going to try and keep the original wheels. The tyres, yeah, that could be an issue unless I can get some original Inferno or Turbo tyres. I'll have to keep an eye out for them. Nothing major at the moment. In the day, I could still use these tyres on there to, if it was got to the point where it was running, so it's not the end of the world. The other thing is with these are right bitch. Now in between there, there's a little gap. That's a rubber O-ring that goes in, and when you take that out, there's a grub screw in there behind that you undo, that then takes this off. I didn't know that at the time, because when I stripped my MP5 down, I didn't have a manual. But now I've done it, I now know. But yeah, they're not the most user friendly. So just a quick clean up on the shaft. It's not perfect, but it's cleaner than what it was. No grease and grime all over it for the time being. Something like a bit of satin matte black on there would go amiss, would it? So I don't know yet. But you know, that's that done. The wheels I've cleaned. What else have I got to do? There's something else I was doing. No. So the next thing to do is really get this rear assembly stripped. So here they are. So I get these off of a guy in from the States. They're not cheap, and also they're perhaps not as unique as I first thought, but they're super handy. Now they come in plastic tins, as you can see. They're full of hardware for the model that you're rebuilding. Now the only thing I would say, I get these. I've had a set of these for my RC10 GT. I've had a set of these for my Kyosho MP5, maybe my Schumacher Nitro Fusion, and now I've got this for this Kyosho. They're pretty generic. I mean, I'll be honest, I've probably got a load of hardware scattered around, and you don't use nowhere near this. So it is expensive, but at least it is complete, and there's plenty in there. I think the sticker on top is a generic sticker. I could be wrong, but from what I can gather, they're just standard size nuts, bolts, washers. And they do work on the kit, obviously, but if there's any like speciality screws and nuts and bolts that are specific for that kit, I don't think they're going to be in there. But I don't change absolutely everything, because it's not always necessary. And some of the nuts and bolts, you don't actually take them off. I suppose I should if it's a nut and bolt restoration, but the car's not going to be absolutely pristine, because like I've said in a gazillion times, I can't get all the bits that I need, so I just have to do whatever I can with what I've got. So this is the rear suspension and setup, wishbone, diff, etc. I think what I'm going to do now is start stripping it down, see how far I go with it. I mean, like for example, the hinge pins, they're not going to be changed, but there's a lot of hardware that are holding this sort of upright here in this bit here, which holds it to the sort of where the wing would go. This car's not having a wing, as it happens. The diff will come out, I will wipe it down, and it'll be re-greased. And I'll probably use some sealant or something around the bottom there, because all that does is, that's the only sort of, you don't want it full of swimming around with in there with grease, like loose. I put like a thick, I mean, I think what came out of what's still in there is like normal like car grease, if I'm honest. So this bit's a bit messy. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to film it, what I want to do. I mean, it feels really smooth anyway. I mean, but it's just part of my resto project. I've got to remember which way in the diff goes. So that goes in the car like that, and the diff's on the right hand side. So I will make sure I'm aware of that. Okay, so where shall I start? Where shall I start? Well, clearly the top shocks nut and bolt. So I will, yeah. I mean, these are good value. I mean, say they're good value. It's about, I think it works out with shipping from the States. I think it's, I can't remember, is it Canada? I think they might even come from Canada. Don't know. I can't remember. But I want to say, I mean, I did offer him money for like a deal, and he did that. So I think it was a total for something like £48. A lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it can revitalise anything you've got. You know, strip screws, or they're just old crosshead screws that these I have. I'm not saying they're all going to fit, because some of them may not be practical, but I think where you've got a crosshead, depends on what it is, but you've got these like dome ones in there as well, which will help. You got to also bear in mind I think they're Imperial, aren't they? Or they make, I can't remember which one it is now. I don't know whether it's metric. Might be Imperial, I've got to think. I can't remember. I can never remember which way was which on that one. If you do know, let me know. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to forget anyway. But yeah, so making sure you've got the right hardware. They do supply a bit of some tools with it as well. So some of these screws, I suppose, are specific for the, you know, sort of the overseas market. Anyway, enough of that. I'm going to start with taking the shocks, the top mount off, and I think possibly then once I got them off, this top shock mount, aluminium shock mount, can come off, and I can sort of screw it back in. Depends on the size, doesn't it? But screw it back in. Well, to be honest, I've actually got to strip it down and then put it all back together. So I've got to be kind of clever with what, I don't want to take it all off and have a table full of bits, do I really? And I want to clean and wipe down the bits that I couldn't wipe down previously. Okay, so it's all come apart pretty easy. I've just taken the sort of the rear gearbox apart and took everything off it. That's sort of, it's super simple considering how successful these were. It's just like sandwiched together. And everything looks okay. I'm going to clean it off and just make sure everything's. I mean, I was going to change the bearings, but actually, there's no play in those bearings whatsoever. So we're just to clean a little bit of oil, but this is okay. This is, I mean, I'll clean it off, and it only sort of sandwiches together. The downside is, I suppose, the hardware I've bought, some of it, because it's self-tapper, and it goes into plastic. I'm not so sure how or if that will work. You know, the hardware is only useful for sandwiching together or screwing into a threaded insert, of which this isn't. So there's also, I'm not sure what that is. I've not noticed that before. This goes onto the front. It's the pinion there, look. But it's got like a, something obviously broke there. I'm not sure what that's for. The other side's been like machined away. I don't know what that is. Probably take that grub screw out if I can. Hope that's not locked in there like with Hulk type pressure. Then I'll give that a clean and put it back together, because I don't want to leave things lying around, because I won't get this finished today. I've only really got like another hour, I suppose. I don't particularly want to rush it, so yeah, I'm gonna do this, clean this up. I'm gonna clean the diff up, and then I'll put it all back together. So there was I took the grub screw out of the output shaft, the old one, it's fine. I can't get the output shaft off the pinion. It really, I mean, the bearings feel fine. So I think rather than try and strain and swear and get that off, there's no point. I will just put a new grub screw in with a bit of Loctite on it. Although it doesn't look like it's going to come off anyway, but you know, we'll just put this in. And there's no play there at all. So I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of grease. I'll say grease, I think it's diff oil, onto the pinion bearing. And then, yeah, I'll do the same with the diff then. The diff can come out. And then it can sort of be put back together in a much more cleaner and checked environment. Okay, so I'm going to just take what I'm going to do now, do it off camera because it is super messy. I'm going to take this gearbox part. I think it's not really a gearbox. There is no such thing, is there? It's just a diff, like I've said before, a centre diff and an output shaft to another diff. There's no other moving parts. So, yeah. We'll get this apart, pull the sides off, clean up the rear diff, making sure it goes back on this way. That's why I'm keeping it orientated. And then we'll go from there. I don't think I'm going to strip this gear diff down. I don't think so. It does feel okay. Maybe I will check it if it's not too difficult to get apart. So that's the diff apart. It's very simple. Planet wheel, two sort of planet wheels, and whatever the other ones are called. What are they called? I don't know. But you know, those ones. So that's the diff off the top. It's a good job I took it off, really. I mean, looking at that, there's nothing in there. I mean, it does feel really smooth, but yeah, I need to sort of put some grease in there, don't I? Or oil or something. So I'm going to clean up this outside bit. I might put some, I might even put some gasket sealer around there, because that will sandwich in there a little bit, but I don't want too much. I don't want it all coming out everywhere. But it's in pretty good condition. The gears, all the gears so far on that rear diff, all seem good. So I'm going to give it a wipe down, fill it with oil. I'll use this stuff here for now, and seal it all back up again. The diff's all back together. It's got oil in it. I'll put some sealer on it just to sort of try and keep some of it in, doesn't leak. I didn't think to look at what that is. There's a grub screw there. I kind of did it up a tiny bit, but it has made, well, not that, but the oil's made the diff a lot more less free, I should say. There was no oil in it, was there? So good. So a lot of this hardware that's come off, most of it's like self-tapper type hardware that will go back into plastic. I'm not sure if I will change these ones. I don't know yet. I might give it a go to see what it looks like. But yeah, it's all good. Got me that goes in that way. So the hardware that you supplied does actually fit. So I've replaced what I can. It does screw into plastic. So the trick being, as it might sound so obvious, is not to over tighten it, because I think it'd be quite easily stripped, because the screws that go in are sort of self-tapper, so they can get reasonably tight. But these are just threaded. Ideally, you've got like inserts in there and to bite up against it, but it's not the same. So you can put them in, but don't over tighten them. You can get them to just that point of that feels tight enough. They're not going to come out, type of thing. But anyway, yeah, it's all gone together quite nicely. I'll crack on and finish it off and then show you when I'm done. So that's the rear diff assembled. I've not put any oil in there yet, but it feels, you know, super smooth. And the diff itself feels nice and like a diff. When it goes back on the chassis, I'll put a little bit of sealer around here before it sort of gets installed back on the chassis, complete with the wishbones, which are, you know, it's got to clean them out a little bit where I can't get to them when they were on the car. And this will be put back on the car, and then I'll probably do the same with the front. Now it'll be the same process. So I probably, unless I find something unusual, I won't film the front of the car being done. All back together, all cleaned. No other issues as such. I haven't greased the diff, not yet. I'm going to put it on the car. I'm going to put some sealant around here. You sort of build it dry for now, because you can take these top bits off here. We can scoop that back, and you can drop some oil from the top from there, you see. So yeah, all went to well, very, very well indeed, actually. Went to well, very, very well. It all went together very, very well. So I'm going to put it back on the chassis. We'll seal this bit up. We'll find some screws that we can use for these. And then I'm going to do the front. I'll take the front off. Same. As a little bit more to do on the front because of the steering and everything. And then put that back on, less the sort of the centre shafts, then take the centre diff out, which includes all the brake system. Strip that down as far as I need to go, clean it all up, and go from there really. And there you have it, it's all done. Well, no it's not. No, it's not. The back's all done. It's on there, nice and clean. You work your way forward and it gets a bit mucky there, and then the front is kind of how it used to all be. So I'm going to start dismantling the front. And finally, well, for this part anyway, we're pretty much done on what I'm going to do at the moment. So it's all been cleaned, stripped it down. I did strip all the diffs down, including the centre diff, and what a bastard. Oh, I don't normally swear and start cursing, but fucking hell, we were going so well, finding no problems. They're not major problems, but they make life fucking difficult. But as expected, all the diffs, the axle, front and rear, and the centre one were all empty. Nothing, which is expected. They now work as a proper diff. So, and they're not worn, I have to say that. They're not abused. The engine on there at the moment is only just on there for show. It's not the one that's for this car. So, any problems? Well, the problems are, it's not really a problem really, but the diffs have like a grub screw. The back one's got one in, and you can tighten it up, and it kind of tightens the diff up a little bit. It's like resistance. You're not supposed to do it really tight. The grub screw in the front diff ain't there, and there's a grub screw in there that's not there. Now the other thing is, the grub screw also acts as a plug. Stops all the oil coming out, especially the centre diff. It's sort of in, I don't know if you can see it. It's there, so you can do that. It's not a grub screw in there. I just put some sealant in there for now. But I don't know if I've got. I have to look, see what size they are. I don't know what size. I haven't got any because all my stuff's mainly 1/10. Anyway, the grub screw does go in there, and you can tighten it up on the centre diff, and it just gives it a bit more resistance. Does it, or is it a plug? Is it meant to be a plug? Yeah, so the front diffs, it's all done. Feels quite good. What else? Also got to put the steering on, I haven't done that yet. I'm trying to think now. Oh, though that hardware pack I bought hasn't got everything in it that you need. It's a bit disappointing. But to give you some idea, these are the old screws that came off this. So there's quite a lot there. These have all been replaced with stainless steel, so that's good. These bolts here on top, a bit short, so I have got some longer ones somewhere. I need to find them. All the covers are clean. They do come off. Diffs are not oiled. A little bit of grease in them maybe. And I'm just about to put the steering back on. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. That's it for now. I will be back for part 3 in due course when I've got something reasonable to show you. It will probably be. Oh, by the way, forgot. Most important one. There's a Bodyshell. Got to cut it. But yeah, so I might be. The next episode will be sorting the steering out, making sure everything I've got is back on, and anything that I can source, which I will bring to you, and also fitting of the shell. I don't know whether a motor will be in the car, a proper motor that I'm going to use. I've no idea, but yeah, 1.5mm. It's a nice shell. Heavy, but I wanted a sturdy one. Right, that's it for now. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know where you're getting your bits from if you've got one of these. Where can I get them from? And have you got any? Maybe that you can sell, or you know, I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. And there it is, as much put back together as I can. The only bits I haven't put on is like the linkages and things like that. And that motor, again, just to repeat myself, period correct, but not for this model. So yeah, there you go. So it's a complete rebuild. I wouldn't say it's not a restoration. You can't buy anything off it. As I, again, keep repeating myself, don't I? It looks quite good. It's quite neat and tidy. I will put a motor in it. I think I've got a motor that might fit. That's the next plan, I think. The next plan is fit the body shell, and then, as again, the next part 3, fit body shell, source a motor. Initially, there's lots of other things, but let me know what you think. Better than it was. It was cleaner, if anything. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.